We're going to go ahead and call the Ellis County Commission meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank you all for coming, because when this room is full and we do the Pledge of Allegiance, the crowd carries volumes, and there's usually just, on average, maybe 2 or 3 people out there. So thank you all for being here. You should all come more often and fill the house. Next item on the agenda. Donna, please call the roll.
Commissioner Butch Schleier.
Present.
Commissioner Dean Hazelhorse.
Present.
Commissioner Destin Marsh.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Donna. Any changes to the order of business this evening? I believe we have one executive session. Is that correct? Yes? Yes. Any other changes, fellow commissioners? No? Prior minutes, March 11th. Additions, corrections?
I had nothing.
Dustin? Donna? Stand approved as presented. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda, items A through G. I need a motion to approve.
I move we approve consent agenda items A through G as presented.
I'd second the motion.
Donna, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 3-0. Issues from persons not on the order of business this evening. Seeing none, we'll move on to monthly departmental reports. I trust my fellow commissioners have the time to read the very thorough packet that was put together again.
Yes. Went through it. Looks good.
Yes. Dustin?
Yep, everything looks good.
Thank you again, department heads, if you are present, and if not, we thank you anyway for the hard work that goes into this every time you bring it to us. Very good and very well presented. Next item on the agenda, I'm assuming is probably why 98% of you are here. Final plat of Blue Sky Acres Edition. This time we'll call on Curtis Dinas to come up and present what he has to say.
Good afternoon. I am Curtis Dinas, the Planning Inspection Enforcement Superintendent for the City of Hayes. The owner of the proposed Blue Sky Acres Edition has submitted a final plat for consideration. This property is located outside the city limits of Hayes, but does fall within the 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction area. The property is adjacent to previously platted property and is currently undeveloped farm ground. Acceptance of this plat will allow the development of the property. The plat is comprised of 6 lots, ranging in lot size from 2.5 to 3 acres, and is slated for residential development. The plat does include dedication of road and alley right-of-way. The roads are to remain private, as indicated on the plat, and will be constructed and maintained by the developer and adjacent property owners. Staff has reviewed the proposed plat, which has also been reviewed by the Utility Advisory Committee of the City of Hayes. The final plat was reviewed and approved by the Hayes Area Planning Commission. A resolution accepting the final plat has been submitted for your approval if you find this to be favorable. If approved, the County Commission, the plat will go before the City Commission on or about April 11th for final approval. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Curtis. Commissioners, questions? No? Tom Drees, any questions for Curtis?
I don't know if they're for Curtis or if Tom is here or Mary Alice. We had 2 concerns concerning the road. Last time.
Tom? I'll let you know how we're going to do that.
Okay.
This evening, we are here to discuss the plat, which they have approved. If the plat is approved, and we don't know that yet, if the plat is approved, we will cover that after the plat is approved, because if it's denied, there's no reason to talk about Randall Lane.
Okay, but once it's approved, we do have to have those in place. And
correct.
If we approve it without it in place, we may have.
That will be a separate contract.
So
that will be a separate contract on the 350 feet, I believe, that is there.
Okay. And the only other question then would be, last time they indicated that the roads within the plat would be constructed to Ellis County standards.
That is correct.
And that's nowhere on the plat or in the dedication to Ellis County.
Yep, that will also have to be added. And Bill Ring, is Bill here? Yes, hi, Bill. I talked to Bill about that today also, and that will come under the engineering part that will have to be constructed to county specs, which will also have to be included in that. And again, if the plat is denied, there will be no further discussion.
Do
with you?
we know if the roads will be constructed of sand, gravel, or blacktop?
When it comes to that point, I believe Mary Alice or maybe Tom is going to talk about that, or Errol, but they have contacted Joel Younger, and they do have a plan in place for that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Curtis? None? Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
So everyone knows how we're going to do this evening. This does not have to be brought up for public discussion. This can be discussed amongst the commissioners. This is not a public hearing. In fairness to both sides, we are going to open it up to the public. If there is one person that wants to represent each side, I'll ask you to come up and state your name. You'll have 7 minutes to tell us your concerns. If multiple people from each side would like to come up and discuss their concerns, each person will have 3 minutes to tell us why you think we should or should not pass it. We're going to limit it to 5 people per side for either for or against, just so it's being fair to everyone. Being it's Mary Alice that is looking at putting in the blue sky addition, we're going to ask her first if she has any comment to come up and what she has to say, or if someone else from her side will do that. I take it Tom Wessinger is.
Okay, yeah. Name is Tom Wessinger. I'm here representing Mary Alice on Rhine today. I think this plat has been the most fully examined plat in the history of Ellis County. It's been around for 2.5 years. Every issue that's material or significant has been discussed in public ad nauseum. I think at this stage of the game, from Mary Alice's standpoint, she just simply wants to move forward. I agree with the Chairman Hazelhorse that any issues regarding roads, Randall Lane outside of the plat is a separate issue, and we can deal with that later. As far as Commissioner Schleier's question about the road, and as far as the specs, it's assumed it has to be it has to be built according to county specs because you guys are going to be in charge of approving it. So at the end of the day, if she doesn't do it, it's not going to happen, and you can stop her, which is not the issue, of course. As far as what kind of surface it's going to have, it'll minimally be rock to conform with or to be consistent with other kind of county roads, but she is leaving open the possibility that it could actually be either concrete chip or seal or chip, or even millings. So, but that's going to be decided later. At minimum, it'll be rock, again, to be consistent with other county roads. Okay. At this stage, really, all we want to do, there's nobody else speaking for Mary Alice. We don't want to take up any more time. We just simply would like to move this forward. Again, the discussion has been around for 2.5 years, so I'm not quite sure what new can be.
Tom, while you're here, if you're going to speak for Mary Alice, can you touch on the water?
Well, I mean, everything has been in the packet before. And the water hasn't changed. The water issue hasn't changed. There is sufficient water we think, to supply each house for domestic use. We don't have to get permission from the state to allow that to happen. And we have talked as backups with rural water districts, and she visited the Trigo County Rural Water District last week, and Mary Alice is going to move forward with a feasibility study to see if they can be a backup later on, or even be a resource for people if they want to join in later. So that's going to take a little bit of time, but there is sufficient water, again, as based on the letter from Keith Firesteel, and her water rights under whatever water rights she has with the state now. So
at Trigo County at the meeting, their board approved to move ahead with doing the feasible study,
yes,
correct?
They said she said she would pay for it. They would require her to pay for it. She's agreed in principle to do that. And so the next step would be for them to get a surveyor out there and, see how, which direction they come from, water, the width of the water lines, all those kind of things. And so she intends to move forward with that as well.
Thank you, and your 3 minutes is up.
There you go. Okay.
Commissioners, I did call Keith Vaughn still today and visit with Keith, and he was adamant that there is ample water supply in that area. The well he did test for Mary Ellis, he said was a very good well, and irrigation wells around the area aren't being used anymore, so he said there's ample water supply. He wouldn't, however, say there would be necessarily a well on every lot. He said you would have to find a water vein on every lot that's there, and one wouldn't know that until they drilled for the water. But he said there is ample water in the area.
Okay. Thank you, Butch. At this time, I will call spokesmen or multiple people from the Von Felt edition to come up. Brian, will you be talking for the whole group, or have more people coming?
I will be talking for the whole group. Thank you for your consideration in this matter today, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Brian Church. I'm a resident of the Von Felt subdivision and an SH&E specialist by trade. I am also a member of the Joint Planning Commission of Ellis County. I am not speaking on their behalf today. I just want a full disclosure for everyone present.
Thank you.
I would like to pose a question to the City of Hayes, if that's allowed, Chairman.
That'll be fine. Toby and Curtis are here. I don't know if they can give you an answer why they're sitting here, but you can pose the question, and I will trust that Curtis or Toby will get us an answer.
All right, thank you. I just have a question on the procedural and why this did not go back to the City Planning Commission with the lag and the change in regulations. I was under the understanding it would go back before the city. It's just a procedural question, just...
Okay, thank you.
Toby Doherty, City of Hayes. It didn't go back to the Planning Commission because it passed the Planning Commission under a set of regulations. It stalled in the process after it passed the Planning Commission. And so, therefore, because the applicant has made no significant change to the proposal, nothing has changed materially, then there's no need to go back and reset the clock. So, essentially, that process is still being moved forward right now with it being resubmitted.
Thank you, Toby.
No. Thank you, and I just seen in the new regulations there was, a time limit that would expire, so.
Just so you know, Brian, the time that Toby did speak did not count against your time.
All right, I appreciate that, Dean and fellow commissioners. So I just want to state we're not here to stop development. That has not been our concern throughout this entire process. We have investments in those homes out there. We want to see our investment protected. We want to see our family's well-being protected. With that, as Tom said, these concerns are the same ones we've had before, and maybe you guys can explain the process a little bit more thoroughly so we feel more comfortable about this process. I feel it's part of your guys' jobs, and my job as a Planning Commission member is to foresee potential problems and try to stop them from happening, preventing them from happening, causing harm to the citizens of the county. With that, the water supply, Tom has addressed that. We will just move on from there. Drainage, I know Butch, James Hartman had talked to you. You asked that he bring the pictures. James, if you want to share those pictures with the commissioners, I won't go into any more of that. Just to mention that he did have an overhead water flow issue, caused some settling of his septic tank, and posed issues from there that he's been dealing with. I know we had a wet year this year, but that occurred, I do believe, during a normal to dry year. So with the drainage, the north ditch of Randall Lane, it does empty into my front yard. As that surface is changed, as the road is modified, as it is extended, I foresee a potential problem. I just want to see that it's addressed so that my property is not put in harm's way, my family's welfare is not put in harm's way. That 80 acres, looking at a map, it all flows east. So the drainage isn't just an issue for us, it's an issue for her proposed development. Like to see that addressed. I don't know if that's done now in the planning stage or or after this point, access. That access off of 183 enters through my property, turns south. Not an issue with the current flow of traffic as that traffic starts to move west. It's a pinch point there. It's approximately 40 feet between the telephone boxes and my light pole out there from Midwest Energy. Doing a turn south and back to the west, I think it can potentially cause issues there, and that's something that we would like to avoid. So, just asking that we see that this is done right, that it's done, it's a well thought out process that doesn't harm us. So I'd like to see some conditions in place. She's working on the water. Let's make sure we have water there for the future development, either through Trigo County, approve it, let her drill some test wells, move the driveway, line it up. Let's have some of these things done and in place before we move forward with doing, set out a procedure, lay it out, the drainage. Let's have an engineer look at it. Let's get a plan in place and see that it's followed. So I guess it comes back to Randall Lane, and you said that would be a separate issue. I guess my question then would be, myself, who is adjacent to that, and the other property owner adjacent, do we get to have a seat at the table on that conversation and how that's...
I'll cover that. If this passes or does not pass, I'll cover that. I've talked to Bill Ring today, and we will cover that here in just a little bit on that procedure, how that works through an engineer.
Okay. No.
Perfect.
With that, I would like to thank you for your time and consideration.
Still got 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Like Tom said, this issue's been on the table. I know we have some new commissioners. Just get the information in front of the new commissioners and move forward and do it safely and properly.
That's one reason why I thought we'd open it up for public comment, just for that reason, because I know they've read it in the paper and wherever else Hayes posts, and that isn't always accurate.
Yep.
So,
thank you.
Thank you for coming up, Brian, and everyone from your edition. Commissioners, at this time, it's... yes.
Make one brief comment, because you don't like, we were supposed to have 7, I only used 3.
Okay.
I'm going to take 1 second. I just
Okay.
want to address the access issue.
That's fine.
One of the things I asked Harvey Reuter to do on this plat map is to show where the entrances are from 183. There is another southern entrance that is absolutely no problem whatsoever. So there are actually 2 access points to this Mary Alice's addition to go down frontage roads. So I just want to make it clear that while there are issues with Randall Lane and coming off of next to Mr. Church's property, there is access to it.
Just stay there for a second, because if you're the spokesman, I have a question for you anyway. On the very south lot of the Von Felt edition, do you have that copy?
I don't have a. Well, I have a blank picture of it. I have an idea where it's at relative to the plat.
The question I have for you, if you're representing Mary Alice, usually have an entrance here.
No, here.
Down here.
Yeah.
This is actually an alley right here. It's considered an alley easement along the south
Yeah,
side.
20 feet's platted in there.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there is your thought process, or you guys kind of use this as an entrance for a second entrance into here?
No. Well, I mean, you mean over to here?
Yes, because you have one entrance here on Randall Lane, or are you looking at this as the second entrance possible?
No. Not at this
In and out?
one on it, yes. Well, because we have, our thought is, and again with Harvey's thought process is we've got the ability to turn and go back and forth, so there's no reason to have another second one at this stage of the game, because I don't think she intends to ever go this way, but right now anyway. So if that may be an issue in the future, but not right now.
There is a draw right here, is the reason I was asking.
Yeah.
There's a draw that catches most of this water that comes this way.
Yeah, I understand. But no, not right now anyway.
Thank you, Tom.
Is that it? Okay.
Okay, commissioners, questions, thoughts?
I think I have a couple thoughts. I guess the first thought I have is, I actually sat down with a lot of the property owners in the Von Felt subdivision and heard them out on their issues and concerns. I hope that when I talked with them and gave them my viewpoint on it, that I at least got them that they were happy that they were able to speak their mind to what they thought should be done. That being said, I didn't run a campaign for the position I'm in, but there's a lot of people that do run campaigns in this area, and I have ran a campaign in the past, and it's in almost every one of those campaigns we talk about housing prices. And when we talk about housing prices, we usually talk about needing more inventory in order to lower the housing prices. And so, that being said, there's also an issue with this that I believe is important, and that's that somebody's able to do with their property what they want to do, as long as it's not causing financial issue to the people around them. This is all stuff to me that can be figured out in a court of law if they feel like they have a case, and my thought process is I don't believe that this is something that should be stopped at a county commission level. That being said, I do understand their concerns. I did get a chance to sit down and talk with them, and I told them that they should definitely look into those concerns as things move forward. But it was going to be pretty tough for me to be a roadblock to something that seems so beneficial over the long run for this county.
Thank you, Dustin. That all?
Yep.
I have a concern. If this property is approved and the plat is developed, the county has no building codes. Is it the city that's going to enforce the building codes and standards, or is it the county? Or is it going to be no one?
Basically on that, and Phil can comment too, I mean, the septic systems have to be built by, I don't know if Karen's here or not, but she does go out and do the inspection on septic systems. Okay.
Right.
And I believe Mary Alice has a set of codes put into place for that addition, what I've read, on far as what can and cannot be built out there. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. That's what I've read.
Right, but we don't have a standard building code as far as electrical or plumbing or anything like that.
We have no inspectors, no.
We have no inspectors.
No, not at all. Like I say, on the environmental side, Karen does that, and I think she's been out on some building sites in the past. But as far as inspecting electrical, et cetera, no.
So a contractor could kind of do it on the cheap side and put a potential homeowner in jeopardy too.
Probably could happen, I guess, couldn't it, Tom? I mean, or Phil, what do you want to comment on that? I mean, it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible, but it's within the discretion of the county commission to adopt building codes. The commission has not chosen to do that in the past, and so this is not dissimilar to any other housing that's developed outside the
City limits.
cities. So,
Okay. Any other questions, Butch?
No, I think I did visit with met some of the folks out here in the Vonfeld edition. I think their concerns are very valid. As you said, Dean, the lot size is sufficient. The septic systems will be approved per the county standard, and water seems to be abundant. Access is there, and given those reasons, there's nothing I can see that would allow me to vote against the addition. I guess I hope as this could go forward, that the concerns of the folks in the Vonfeld edition are indeed met, and some of those concerns could be alleviated.
I agree. Thank you.
Dean, if I could.
Yes, Dustin, go ahead.
I'd
I'm
just
sorry.
like to speak a little bit to Butch's question of the idea of setting up codes for these houses. I think this is a point where I think we rely on the free market to help control this. I can't imagine that it would be in Mary Alice's best interest to build homes that under inspection come back as a home you wouldn't want to buy. And I imagine that all homeowners that would look at these homes as a potential to buy them would likely want everything inspected before they made this purchase. So as far as the idea of us building codes in the future, and I know that there's obviously a reason for codes in all things, I think the beauty of this is that Mary Alice is taking the risk, and with that risk would become a ton of responsibility for her to put people in charge of things that do things right. And I have no concerns as far as that goes in my vote on this.
Thank you, Dustin. I don't have a lot of concerns. A couple things, I guess, that I know it's been addressed since I've been part of this, I believe 2.5 years now, however long this has been going on, about that long. The drainage issue, I did visit with Mary Alice on that some, and her contractor also I did visit with. That is something they're going to address at that point if this is passed. As far as the water going to the south, it's already the flow of the water now on the south end of the property does flow that direction. So when they construct lots, they will also have to do that on the drainage side. I guess the other thing I'd like to talk about is the septic systems. I know there's been some issues out there in the past. A lot of the houses sit on 1 acre lots or just a touch over 1 acre. And I know the last time this came up, a year ago, I know they was worried about septic systems failing, and I believe there was 1 or 2 out in the Von Felt edition that did fail. As far as contamination goes, I'd be much more concerned on a 1 acre lot or 1.2 acre lot than I would be on a 3 acre lot. I think Mary Alice has done justice on making her lots bigger to possibly take care of that problem. I can testify to a septic issue on ground that I own that sits on a 1.5 acre lot. So I can feel for you folks out there when you say you're worried about septic systems. I fully understand where you're coming from. And Mary Alice going to 3 acres and 2.5 acres on a couple of them, I think that was very wise on your part. Other issue that was brought up was about controlling the view. I know when the folks out there in the Von Felt edition, I believe, purchased that property or built houses, I think they were told, some of them were told they may not ever have any neighbors. If that was the case, I hope it wasn't, but if that was the case, I don't think there's any way of controlling your view. I did do some research in the Book of Statutes in the state of Kansas, where there's tens of thousands of statutes that have been written since the state of Kansas was founded. There's only one statute in the state of Kansas that talks about controlling your view. That view has to do with if someone puts in a salvage yard within and around your property. This issue did come up on the wind turbine issue also about controlling views, and I figured there'd be more statutes out there about that. I found one. There may be more, but I researched it for about a half a day and found one. So again, I believe in good neighbor policy. Mary Alice, I know you've put a lot of time and money into this and effort. I know you've researched Trigo County extensively about bringing water. They're doing a feasibility study now. And I hope the folks in the Von Felt edition, if this passes, that they are also willing to work with you if the day comes with Trigo water and you bring in water, that they also have the opportunity possibly to hook onto Trigo water. If that is an option someday, and that's, I'd like to see us all get along, and that's why I believe in the good neighbor policy. We all need to work together at the end of the day. That's really all I have to say. The next issue coming up will, I guess first we have to vote, but after that, the next issue coming up is, I know one Brian Church has concerns about, and that's Randall Lane. But we'll address that later. That's all I have to say. Commissioners, anything else to add?
No.
Butch?
Nothing.
Dustin? So before you, you have a final plat of Blue Sky Acres. There's a motion needed either to approve it, or if no motion is given, it will be denied. At this time, I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Could I just want to clarify that if someone does make a motion for approval, that you also make sure to include the resolution as part of that motion?
That is correct. At this time, I'll ask for a motion and to include the resolution, if there is one.
I move the commission approve the final plat of Blue Sky Edition and direct the clerk to publish the same along with the resolution for the plat.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioners, is there further discussion? Now is your time before I call for the vote. Any further discussion, Butch?
No.
None? Dustin? Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 3-0, Donna. Thank you all for your time. Mary Alice, thank you for what you are putting together. Folks from the Von Felt Edition, I appreciate you coming here this evening, voicing your opinion. I know this has been going on for 2+ years. And again, hopefully this does bring more housing to Hayes. If it does, hopefully we can all work together as the good neighbor policy, and encourage you guys to do that. If you don't know Mary Alice, I encourage you to pick up the phone and talk to her and see if she is making changes out there, how you guys can work together. I think her and Errol and I believe Tom are going to be the ones working on that project together. So if you see something as it's going forward, maybe you'd like to see changed, added, subtracted, again, I encourage you to visit with her and look at this project going forward. Thank you all for coming. Next item on the, I guess it ain't an item, the next item I want to talk about, Bill Ring, could you please come up? Per our conversation earlier today, I did talk to Bill about Randall Lane, possible drainage. Would have to have an engineer look at that because it does drain on Mr. Church's property now. And what has to be done there as far as a study, et cetera, and how that will look going forward. Could you care to comment on that?
Bill Ring, Public Works Director. Yes, Commissioner. The developer would have to contract with basically a water engineer, environmental engineering group to study where the water is actually going now. Looking at the mapping we have, it all appears to be coming to the east, like you referred to. Some of it does shed to the south. And then that would be part of the construction process to figure out where and how she will place her culverts in the development, whether they go, across Randall Lane and on what would be, I'll call her side, where they would go north to south and drain to the south, and then ditches, et cetera, out in front of the homes. Or likewise, if it was to come to the east, and then we have, as it stands right now, Randall Lane is 60 foot wide. Put a 24-foot road top on it, then your balance would be split on either side. Depending on the amount of water and the potential, it will then be determined how wide the ditches would be, back slope, the grading and whatnot, and then also the pitch that it's going to take to go from west to east to carry the water, and then where in turn the water would go, depending on amount, again, the amount they guess it to be. We don't want it draining. I'm sure KDOT's not going to want it draining on 183. Likewise, what Mr. Church said, he's not going to want it draining on his property. So it's going to be a little bit of time involved with, like I said, a water engineer to try to figure out where it's going to go. And then once we figure that out, where we're going to, where they're going to have it directed to.
And I believe Mary Alice understands this also. There will have to be a separate contract drawn up for Randall Lane because that is county property. And there will be a separate contract that Mr. Dries will draft in the future as far as
When you a contract regarding what?
as far as her building the road to county specs. We need to have that in writing, that road will be built to county specs.
Talking about her roads, right?
Her roads and Randall Lane will also, she's doing the improvements, so it will be built.
This plat wasn't conditioned upon her doing improvements to Randall Lane to the 350 feet of it.
300.
Not to say she won't help and work.
Yeah.
But this is a public road.
And
it's a county responsibility. Again, she's never said anything other than she wants to work with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand the separate contract issue. I mean,
For 300.
maybe we can work something out, but I don't,
As you know from planning and zoning, the county no longer participates in any additions as far as building roads, et cetera. This is an access road, and I visited with Mary Alice also, and the 352 feet. I believe it'll probably have to be a rock surface, and we haven't talked about pricing or none of that yet, nor do we know that yet until I talked to Mary Alice briefly about that, and it will be probably a rocked road going forward, and that's something we'll have to visit with going forward until we see how the water is going to drain, because it does dump on Mr. Church's property now, and we will have to eliminate that part. Yes, sir?
If I can inject that, and this is a copy of a lawsuit that Mr. Dries was involved in a number of years ago, and it specifically says, this is a Supreme Court decision, a county has no statutory authority to informally designate others as its agent to maintain county roads. Therefore, there has to be, you can't not informally do it. It must be contractually done.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Anything else to add? Bill, we did, or I guess Tom mentioned about the KDOT road. You told me today how that works, that driveway being moved, as far as that has to go through Topeka for that driveway to be moved. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. When I talked to KDOT, 2 years ago when we...
I think Mary Alice has talked to Kevin Zimmer. She says yes.
I don't know that
Also.
locally they have the authority to make that decision, much the same as I explained that I work for you,
Sure.
the three of you, and I can make a recommendation, but that the actual decision process,
Comes out of
I
KDOT,
believe, will
Topeka.
take place in Topeka as opposed to
Okay.
at District 3 level.
And if you need to, you can work with Mary Alice on that. Is that correct? As far as helping her where she needs to call and what she needs to do on that? or
Well,
not?
sure.
Okay.
That's not an issue. I think Kevin Zimmer, we work with him every day, can give us the right direction or whatever forms or procedures are required on KDOT's behalf to
Okay.
attempt to accomplish that.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, any other questions for Bill, other than what he did speak about?
Nope, I'm good.
No? Thank you. Mr. Dries, anything to interject?
The commission voted, I think we're done.
Okay. Bill, anything to add? No. Bill, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
I think,
If I may.
Yes, Brian?
Once again, Brian Church, Dean, as we spoke and I asked how this was going to go today, you mentioned about the discrepancy between the platted width of Randall Lane and the actual pin-to-pin width. I did go out on my lunch hour and measure that. It is 50 feet, so it's 10 feet short of what the plat says. So just
And
that will need to be
I think
taken.
Bill had that also on an aerial view, I do believe. But thank you, Brian, for pointing that out.
Actually, Brian, you're talking about you're next to you, that's
The Randall Lane at the back from
Mhm.
my property pin to Terry Conowitter's property pin, we located the pins, I measured with the measuring wheel and it measured just shy of 50 feet, which there is some discrepancy there.
You want to know where the actual pin should be then? I mean, in
The
relative.
planes, so the pins apparently were misplaced or the plat was incorrect.
Brian,
Gotcha.
if you want to go back there and talk to Tom, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
We can do that later. You're right,
Okay.
sorry.
Bill?
Looking at the original plat, as I believe we have it at 60 foot. This is a copy from the county records of a signed plat, and it clearly shows that it was recorded at 60 feet. So if the pins, I don't know who surveyed it when, but as far as this document goes, the county has a 60-foot right-of-way unless something's been recorded at a later date.
That is something, Bill, when we start on Randall Lane, or when it gets to that point, we'll need to find that out for sure.
Oh, we're going to have to. I mean,
There's a true 60
whoever
foot.
whoever builds the road is going to have to get it surveyed to make sure that you know
Exactly.
where the center line is, et cetera, for that.
Okay. That'll be fine, thank you. We will move on. Next. Thank you. We'll move on to mobile wireless and data contract IT assistant director. Not sure who all, Lori, Phil, both.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. County Administrator Philip Smith Haynes. This item comes to you from the County IT Department. Unfortunately, Director Mike Leiker is out ill this evening, and so I'm pinch hitting. The item before you is the result of a request for proposals that was sent out to 4 wireless carriers that serve the area. In response to that RFP, 2 proposals were submitted, one from Nextec Wireless and one from Verizon Wireless. Those 2 proposals were evaluated by a team, many of whom are here this evening and can answer questions more than I can. They evaluated a number of different criteria and found overall the proposals were very close. Ultimately, the recommendation of staff is to accept the proposal from Verizon Wireless, and the reason for that is that Verizon is slightly cheaper over the 2-year period based on credits that they will provide for upgrading to the iPhone XRs. With that, you've pretty much exhausted my knowledge of the process, but as I said, there are others in the room who can better answer questions.
At this time, I'd like to call up Scott Brown and anybody else you want to bring with you. And Lori.
Lori Dreiling, IT Department.
Scott Brown, Ellis County Undersheriff.
Commissioners, Detective Brad Rickey with the Ellis County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you all for coming. I guess I do have a few comments about this. I'm kind of like Bill Ring. I drive the county roads every day, and I can say I have one of each. I got a Verizon phone and a Nex-Tech phone. The reason I have a Verizon phone is because it's a company phone. My Nex-Tech phone is because I want coverage in Ellis County. Just today when I was talking to Bill Ring, I was up on the Saline River, and I think I lost him 2 or 3 times, doesn't matter. I told him early on when we started the conversation that our conversation would be coming to an end, and within about 30 seconds it did, till I got 4 miles down the road and I could use my phone again. And also, if you drive on Highway 40 from Walker to the Ellis-Russell County line, there is no coverage. I can tell you Nex-Tech has a tower on United Ag's elevator in Gorham, Kansas. I'm assuming it's still there because I have 5 bars. And I can also tell you up on the River Road, I get great coverage with Nex-Tech. I'm not saying I'm a promoter of Nex-Tech, but I can tell you I have a Verizon phone and it works good in a lot of areas. But I can tell you when I get north of Hayes and 1 mile west of Antonino, Kansas, it does not work until I get traveled about 3 more miles down the road. The other thing I guess I'd like to say, I know Nex-Tech has put a ton of money in our community at their airport location, Vine Street location, I believe it's 10th or 11th Street location, and they employ a lot of people from Ellis County. And plus I know I believe they got us great support staff, because when I go in there they can help me, and if it comes to IT things, God knows I need a lot of help. And they're pretty good about that. And I guess that's my thoughts about the deal. I know there is a little bit of difference in that. I believe over the contract time, it's very, 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 very minimal. And I guess that's my thought. But Scott, I'd like for you to comment on what your findings were.
Well, we were kind of tasked with putting this together, and so we sent our guys out into the county and throughout. We used not only cell phones but also hotspots or MiFis. We currently run some MiFis within the county because it has better coverage for our guys, okay? Because once we leave the city limits of Hayes on the data side, we lose a lot of information and time. Now, I'm not saying that Verizon is necessarily better than Nex-Tech, I'm saying that they have a broader footprint within our county in regards to the data side. We've had Nextec for a number of years, and they've served us very well. We opened it up because of the time that we're experiencing. We've all been asked to cut things out of our budget and try to bring costs down. And so that's one of the reasons we did. And in doing so, we came in, Verizon came in with a lesser dollar amount than Nextec. We are aware. We did not take that lightly when we sat across from one another. We met numerous times about what Nextec brought to the table as well as Verizon. We're fully aware that they are well embedded within our community in that, but we also felt that we needed to look at what they each brought. Verizon brings a network that will work, and should there be disaster, we have priority not only in the phone line, but also in the data if we should have a tornado and such within our community, which is huge because there's a good chance networks will be taken down, and hopefully we can utilize that. Nex-Tech, within the city limits of Hayes and some of those others that you talked about, Dean, works very well. But our data suffers on that aspect. They just don't have the means. They each provide cows. The cows from Verizon are not only cellular. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's a mobile.
I've got cows too.
Herefords, you know. They bring in a portable system, so if the towers went down, we could still communicate, and they'll set them up for us. They both have them. The Nex-Tech one, as advised, and I hope I'm not speaking, this is what I recall during our meeting. I'm sure they will correct me if I am incorrect. The Nex-Tech does not support the data side, but they do the cellular, and they can give us priority. The Verizon supports both data as well as the cellular side. The main reason it's in front of you is because it comes down to dollars and cents. And I know that that is a huge thing for us at this point in time, and so we're trying to save money. It also provides some coverage once we get out of our area. And I know most of the time 90% of our work is done within, but at the Sheriff's Office, as you know, we cover the state. We do transports. Not only that, the sheriff or myself or any department head within Ellis County may be out of county, and I just recently experienced some problems with some data. However, I did get on the phone, not I, Lori did, with Nex-Tech, and they were accommodating, and they were able to set up a Wi-Fi for phones, and we were able to, and that works great as long as we have Wi-Fis. So sometimes communication is a key in the positions that we all hold, as you guys do. It's important if we have a disaster that each one of you be able to be contacted. And so we're looking at the bigger picture. Again, I'm not saying that Nex-Tech wouldn't provide the coverage we need in the cellular side, but I have a little concern with the data side. We've experienced it. And so we have, on the Sheriff's Office, we're running some equipment through Verizon on that data side.
Okay.
Did I leave anything out?
Red.
I do know that, and I'm going to put Darren on the spot. Darren is running a Verizon phone, and I think he's got some insight into some of those spots, kind of like you're talking about. If I could call him up, if you wouldn't mind.
Go ahead.
Darren, would you come up and speak, please?
Brad or Lori, do you guys have anything to say? Lori? No? No?
Darren Myers, Director of Fire and Emergency Management. I definitely agree with Dean. I apologize, I'm dirty. I wasn't prepared to speak. I'll agree with Dean 100%. You go with Nex-Tech one area, you're not going to have signal. Verizon, you will. 5 miles down the road, you're going to have it with Verizon. So it's a hit and miss depending on what company you're going to go for. I've had several instances out in the county, and it's mostly in the north part of the county, where last year the commission had frustrations during our large fires up there, and even my communications with Phil, last year and the year before, I did not have data access or be able to make phone calls. I literally had to leave the scene, drive miles to get up on top of a hill with Nextec to be able to communicate back and forth with Phil, and then my phone would light up and I'd have voicemails and text messages, and then I'd be sitting there on the phone while the emergency's going on. Since then, I have switched to Verizon, and I just, overall, yes, there are areas where I don't have signal, but overall, there is less areas that I don't have signal, just from my personal experience. And in my world, I guess, reliability, the consistent reliability is very important for us to be able to communicate. And I do agree it would be nice to stay locally within Ellis County as support a local business, but in the terms of emergency communications, that's always the number one thing that fails, and anything that we can do to help that failure point, identify it now and not let it happen in the future. That's where I side on, and that's why I have the Verizon cell phone.
I'm just curious, you don't have coverage north of Ellis either, do you?
No.
On your Verizon phone?
You can get down on the Smoky Hill River, and you won't have with either one of them.
Matter of fact, when you get north of Ellis by 4 miles, you have nothing.
Up there on the curve?
Yeah.
Yep.
Even if you have north of the curve, I can guarantee you this don't work.
Like I say, it's a hit and miss. If you look at one company over the other, you're going to have black spots everywhere.
Okay.
And one thing that is, I don't know if they've spoke about it before the commission is aware, there is something that's coming out in the future called Firstnet, and it's a public safety net, but it's also by AT&T. As the commission may or may not be aware, AT&T's service out here is minimal, but they are looking at a public safety network in the future. But I think we're years away from that, and that was also a consideration that they took into. But there's departments all over, sheriff, police, fire departments. They're just not suggesting getting into that FirstNet world yet, just because the reliability and the build out of all the network towers are not there yet.
Okay.
And I can attest to the FirstNet. We actually received some AT&T hardware, and their cellular was almost non-existent throughout the county. However, their hotspots were top-notch, I'll be honest with you. So, but they run on a little bit different. So, and they didn't even submit a bid, so it's really a moot issue at this point in time. Okay. So, and I will add that I personally have a Nex-Tech phone myself. They've served me well throughout the years, and I have no intentions of changing. So it's not a personal thing, and it's about providing the best coverage for our guys and the equipment so that they can do their jobs. And again, I'm going to jump back to that saving money things, because I've sat through many meetings now, and that's the reason that's before you as them being recommended.
Scott. Hey, Scott. Scott.
Yes.
We've had Nextec now since 2006. So yes. For 13 years, we really haven't had a coverage issue or anything of significance that would have brought this to our attention in the past.
The data has always been an issue, Butch, but you know, and that's one of the reasons we grabbed some Verizon hotspots. I'll be honest with you, because of that issue, because our guys run mobile datas in their cars, and it is so sluggish. In fact, sometimes it doesn't even come up, and so they revert back to they save everything on their computer, and so they're not live. And so we've been running some hotspots for the sheriff's office through the Verizon side because it is better for us. Our coverage is a lot better. So
thank you, Scott. Brad, do you have anything to add?
You know, the only thing that I have to add is that I also have a Nex-Tech phone for my personal, and I probably choose to continue with Nex-Tech throughout my career, working on the Ellis County High-Tech Crime Unit. Nex-Tech has been over backwards, not only on the Nex-Tech side, the Ruraltel side, and the Nex-Tech wireless side, to accommodate my investigations, and their customer service is top-notch. But like the Undersheriff Brown said, when we're out in the county and we're using our mobile data terminals to transfer images of mugshots for people that we're looking for suspects, when we're trying to place phone calls to loved ones that, you know, something tragic has happened to somebody in their family, we are mission critical. We have got to have those connections, and that's why it is so important to us. I think we need to realize that Nex-Tech does have a huge footprint here in Ellis County. Verizon also has a storefront here as well, and they've got employees. Certainly not as many as Nex-Tech does, but they also have a presence here as well. I want to point out one last thing, and then you guys can determine what you want to do from there. That is we do have a Verizon representative as well as a Nex-Tech representative, if you guys have any questions for them.
Okay. Lori, anything to add?
No, I think the guys covered it all very correctly on what we discussed and what we decided.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions for?
I would like to hear from the Nextec representative.
Absolutely, thank you. Aaron Gillespie, Chief Operating Officer for Nex-Tech Wireless. Like the chairman, we believe in the good neighbor policy. I think it's just that plain and simple. Obviously, we're disappointed in the recommendation, and I can provide some feedback to some of their issues in the rural portions of Ellis County. But overall, we would encourage the Ellis County Commission to recommend Nex-Tech Wireless. Obviously, it was a competitive process, and we respect that. We're headquartered in Hayes. We chose to be in Ellis County in 2005 because we thought we could provide better technology for our fellow Kansans. We've expanded the company over almost 14 years to cover 40-plus counties. That equates to 40,000 square miles. We've been partners with Ellis County, as Butch said, since 2006. We've invested over $100 million in technology in western Kansas. We have 17 cell sites in Ellis County. Just this year, to kind of go off of some of the challenges that they have, we will be upgrading a site for data in north of Ellis, also south of Victoria. And then the Catherine situation, that site, unfortunately, it was not quick on the data side during that fire, but it has been upgraded since. So the investment continues to roll into not only Kansas, but to Ellis County. We have multiple locations, not just retail, but presence. That equates to 70 of our 130 employees live in Ellis County. As many of you likely know, we are owned by 3 Kansas cooperatives. So collectively, 203 of our over 500 employees live in Ellis County. Those folks, just like us in the business, we are sponsoring everything from ballparks to parades to you name it, we're involved in it. And that extends into those employees' personal lives as well. We're in the grocery store line next to you. We're coaching ball teams. We're doing everything to promote Ellis County. In 2005, we didn't have to choose Ellis County. We wanted to be here. So, we think it makes sense. It's the good neighbor policy. We should be supporting Ellis County, and we feel the same, that they should support us.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, thank you.
Any questions? I'm sorry, any questions for him?
No, have no questions. No.
I spoke with Aaron a little bit this afternoon and actually got to tour their facility out on New Way. And, going into it, I didn't expect to see what I saw. Honestly, it was quite expansive, employees everywhere, and impressive. I think the comment I made to him was, it's odd for me to be coming out here and having him request something from me as somebody who is a county commissioner. I sit here and I want to thank them every day for locating themselves in Ellis County and being great stewards in the community, and obviously huge investors in technology in all of western Kansas, and being a Kansas-based company is really important to me, much more than the dollar figures here. That being said, you had talked a little bit about data and how you guys are constantly expanding. I don't know if you could, expound upon that as far as the concerns of what, the police force, the sheriff's office would have, and our possible issues with fire and EMS.
Yeah, so we have a handful of things. The technology improvements aren't only coming on those 2 sites that I've already talked about, or really 3 because Catherine got upgraded last year. We are in the process of launching a new service that's referred to as IMS, which will allow us to also launch a proprietary service that's called Emergency Priority Service that will give the same priority to first responders. It'll be priority 24/7, 365, not just when there's an emergency. So with the advancements in the radio access network that we're doing in Ellis County, there's a lot of other fun and exciting things that we've committed to and will be launching here in the not-too-distant future. It's a 2019 launch for us. So a lot of their concerns, while I recognize, everyone's not perfect. We're not perfect. I'm not trying to sit up here and tell you that our coverage is going to work everywhere. But I can say in Ellis County, just from statistics, 17-9, and some of the other stuff that we're doing to improve service, we're excited where our company's going, and we'd sure like Ellis County to be part of that.
Thank you, Aaron.
Any other questions I can answer?
I have none.
No, I have none.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, thank you.
I'm not sure who the representative is from Verizon. Would you like to come up and say a few words?
Commissioners, thank you for your time. Joe May, Verizon Wireless. Standing in for Jared Biles. Jared is the rep that handles Ellis County and has for the previous 4 years. He lives in Russell. He had to take his father out tonight, but I manage our government team and nonprofit teams in Kansas and Missouri. Came out today. Thank you once again for the opportunity. Public safety is a huge cornerstone of what we do. The undersheriff spoke to it earlier, but priority and preemption is a piece that we have in place and have had in place for over a year now for our public safety. It kind of piggybacks off of the Firstnet rollout through AT&T, but it is a solution that gives, first of all, priority and always-on priority to our not only voice but also our data sessions that are going. So putting you at the front of the users at the front of the line during a high traffic event like a tornado or some other public safety event where the consumers are going to be jamming that network and possibly overwhelming the capacity of a certain tower that your traffic may be riding on. Priority is the first piece that's an always on. Preemption is another piece that is also available at this time. Preemption, unfortunately, at times, that traffic can be overwhelming to a tower, and maybe a session is coming in from a public safety entity, whether it be fire, police, whatever it might be. In the past, you would get a failed attempt. What the preemption does is it will remove a consumer from that tower and allow that public safety entity to get in. So it's not an always-on aspect of the public safety offerings that we have, like the preemption is, but it is something that can be activated during high-traffic events. Not much other. Deployables were another piece that was referenced. Deployables are obviously cows, colts, all the other fun stuff that we talked about, cell on wheels, cell on light trucks, goats for generators on trucks. So there's lots of different deployables that are available to the county at a moment's notice, basically reaching out to us. We have a always-on 1-800 number called VCERT, Verizon Crisis Response Team. We're utilizing that right now in response to the flooding in Nebraska. I've been on calls and deploying assets and resources out there basically since last Thursday. So it is an always-on event, and we're always ready to respond to any kind of crisis. Once again, public safety is the foremost in our minds, and we have a dedicated team, myself and multiple teams across the country that focus solely on public safety.
Thank you. Questions?
No, none.
Dustin, none?
No, I think Kevin.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
gentlemen.
Okay, gentlemen, before you, we have a decision to make, which way we're going to go. At this time, I'd ask for a motion to either approve Nex-Tech or to approve Verizon as your carrier.
I believe in a real shop at home policy. Always have. Use it in my personal life. We always expect our businesses and our taxpayers to support Ellis County. We need to support our businesses and taxpayers. And for that reason, I'm kind of in favor of staying with Nex-Tech.
Is that a motion you're making?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Nex-Tech proposal for wire and data.
This time we have a motion on the floor to approve Nex-Tech as our carrier for Ellis County. Do we have a second?
I second that.
We do have a second. Further discussion, commissioners?
No.
Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0, Donna. Thank you for all that submitted bids. And for the IT department, Brad and Scott and Lori and Mike and everyone else, thank you for everything you did for that, shopping out there. And again, thank you for all the time you put into it. Next item on the agenda, we got to go to the Phil show here pretty quick. Presentation of the initial budget process. Proposals.
Thank you, Commissioner Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator. So, yes, this is the result of the first round of proposals from departments, which were submitted to my office on March 12th. The follow-up from this process is to have meetings with departments, which we have scheduled for March 29th and April 3rd, and then for your commission to provide additional direction on revisions that you would like to see on April 15th. So I'll just give you a few brief comments and then answer any questions, and we can continue this discussion to March 29th. Overall, in looking at what we have done so far, I characterized the submissions from the departments as a fair degree of pain and not much gain. There are a number of departments that in these proposals, in order to achieve a reduction in expenditures of 1.5%, were forced to go into personnel in one way or another. A few departments, such as the appraiser and public works, had positions that they were able to hold vacant, propose holding vacant for 2020. My department, we are proposing to transfer a cost to another department. Public Works has graciously agreed to take one of our staff people one day every pay period in order for us to make budget. And then there were departments such as the county clerk, the register of deeds, and the sheriff's office that actually had to reduce their salary expenditures out of currently filled positions. And they've done that in a few different ways that we can discuss in more detail, but the impact of all of those was less employment of current staff. To that end, I've passed out to the Commission this evening letters that I received from both County Clerk Maskus and Registrar Herzog with the Register of Deeds Office, proposing that the Commission might want to take a further look at your personnel policy. Right now, our personnel policy defines full-time employment for benefit purposes as 40 hours per week. It's not uncommon in other organizations to define full-time employment as some other number, 37.5, 35, something along those lines. And I believe there are some staff that might be willing to take a cut in their hours if they did not have to also at the same time pay a greater share for benefits. Some things that are not included in the proposal that you see before you this evening include any cost increases for insurance. All the departments, we just kept the insurance costs the same. We'll have a better handle in June on what those cost increases will be. I did speak with a representative from Blue Cross Blue Shield today. She said their cost increases are a little less than they have been the past couple of years, but since they filter this through the state employee health plan, she wasn't going to hazard a guess for me as to what the state would ultimately come back with, because the prescription coverage has a much bigger impact. Other things not included, this does not include a change in the mill levy rate. It does assume a 1.5% increase in what the mill levy will yield us, but it does not include an assumed change in the mill levy rate. It also does not include proposed transfers from any of our reserve accounts in the numbers you see before you. Things it does include an assumed amount for employee compensation increases. So the third piece of paper I've passed out to you this evening, in addition to those letters from Clerk Maskus and Registrar Herzog, is a letter from the Wage and Benefit Committee detailing their proposal. They are proposing a 2% cost of living increase for employees, as well as completion of the pay plan policy for 2020, and that dollar impact is included in the proposal. Other things that are included in the proposal are transfers. So did keep the transfer to the Special Highway Fund the same for 2020 as what we currently have for 2019. Also kept the transfer to the Building Capital Fund the same, and added in a $100,000 transfer to the Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. This year, that amount is $0. So there are a number of things that the Commission could make changes to, including that number for raises, the number that you want to transfer to capital, the number that you want to transfer from reserves, the mill rate, many different possibilities. But that is an overview of where we are at this stage of the game. And as I said, I'd be happy to answer a few questions, and then we will have more in-depth conversations with the departments starting on the 29th.
And on the 29th, that is from 9 to 11, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, thoughts?
Well, I will say, I see Commissioner Schleier looking at me. I also took the middle number. You gave me a range on the outside agencies of 150 to 300, so the assumption in here is 225. Split the difference.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Dustin, any comments on what he's presented so far?
I guess my initial thought is that it doesn't make much of a dent in our projections in the future. Obviously we've gotten much more serious about trying to do better at being more surgical about the cuts that we're making. I think this was an important start, though. I think it made everybody, especially, credit to you, Philip, in your position, and which is a mostly staff position, to ask for a decrease in your budget while offering an increase in your pay poses obviously a serious issue with you, and to figure out a way with Public Works. I think this is the type of problem solving that needs to be done in the county. That being said, I'm happy to see that overall we got to about that 1.5% with this initial budget. Now I think us as commissioners, maybe we start doing as good of a job as we can now at governance, and being more surgical about where we think we can cut services, what we think the community or the county is willing to accept as a cut in services, and then start seeing what that looked like. I did have a lot of pushback on this 1.5%, and so I'm really happy to see that it came in that way when they got in with it. It's obviously tough for a lot of our departments that are mostly staff. It's really tough when you decrease 1.5% when most of your budget is staffing. It just gets pretty tough on them. And initially within the day I had pushback on that, but it's good to see that that's actually that they're they're understanding that the issue is severe enough that they need to go and look as hard as they can at their budget and make it happen. So that's exciting for me. Obviously, this is just the start. This is the tip of the iceberg for what we need to get taken care of. I think I can speak for both of my fellow commissioners when I say we're not willing to watch this thing go bankrupt. So we're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to try and be the best litmus test for what the public is willing to pay for, and we're going to be doing that over the next couple of months. So I really appreciate staff, getting to this number for us, and we'll look real closely, I think, at what these numbers mean. I think even with some staff, I had made the mention that you have to show us what 1.5% looks like, or we can't make a decision on whether or not we're willing to do that. So I appreciate them for that.
Thank you, Dustin. And I agree with Dustin, too. I mean, Phil, you got a good start here. Everything you put together, we got something to continue looking at going forward. At least we have numbers now, so I think we're headed the right direction. We just have a ways to go. Butch?
Yeah, I agree with what Dustin said, too. I just find it disheartening that this quick into the game it gets into staffing issues. I guess that's just what we're tasked with, though, and we're going to have to meet that challenge.
Exactly. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, thank you, commissioners, and again, echo the thanks that you all shared to our department heads. They have done the bulk of this work. I just put it all in a cute little Excel spreadsheet for you. Thanks to them and to their staff who will be dealing with whatever comes out of the process. So,
okay, thank you. Since it's the Phil show, we will move on to the work plan from County Commission Retreat.
Thank you, Commissioners. Once again, Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator. The next item is the follow-up from the Commission Retreat that was held on February 20th over in Victoria. The staff of the Public Policy and Management Center at Wichita State facilitated that retreat and have put together a work plan based on what was discussed that day. I would be happy to entertain any changes that the Commission sees to the work plan if you feel like there's something that we missed or didn't get quite correct. Otherwise, we believe this is the direction we heard, and we'll work on carrying this out over the remaining 12 months.
Again, Phil, I think that was put together very well, and I agree with what you have sent to us. I think it's a good plan to start with, and look forward to it going forward.
Changes here. This looks like what we had.
Yeah, I'll echo that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Jeter, County Councilor report.
County Councilor Bill Jeter, thank you. Just a quick update on the current tax foreclosure sale. The last answer date was due today, so that is ripe now for me to work on and file a motion for default judgment. And I still anticipate that for any properties that are left and aren't redeemed, we would have a sale sometime toward the end of May, first part of June.
Okay.
And right now, I kind of anticipate that may only be 4 or 5 properties.
Okay.
And I will keep you further posted. And also then I need an executive session for about 10 minutes to discuss the matter of attorney-client privilege.
Thank you. Back to County Administrator Philip Smith Haynes.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, County Administrator Philip Smith Haynes. So I just had one item this evening, and that is comes to us from our Director of Fire and Emergency Management. You may recall that we replaced our tornado sirens last fall, and so we have a bunch of old sirens sitting around on old telephone poles. And the plan has been to offer those to public auction on Purple Wave, but we've actually had an offer for one from a fire district in Missouri. They would like to pay us, and we're proposing essentially our cost of removal, which was $750. If the commission is amenable to that, Director Myers would also like to make that offer to our neighboring counties as well to see if any of them are interested. And then whatever we're not able to offload, we would go to Purple Wave. But since it is disposal of a county asset, I need to bring that to the commission.
I think I guess, oh yeah, Darren is still here. I thought Darren left, but I think we should offer it local first. And if we have people interested, I think that's a good option. Say, come talk to us. I know you're shy.
I had a phone call. Darren Myers, Director of Fire and Emergency Management. The city of Brownell has also called to request that they had also possibly like two. I'd put them on hold until the commission meeting tonight. And since then, Billings, Missouri has also contacted me back, and they also want to. So,
How many of these do we have?
I believe there's 18 of them out there, and part of them are Ellis. As soon as our meeting's done here tonight, I go over there with them. They have 6 or 7, and going to ask from the same proposal from them if we can sell them, because they're not all the exact same. Some agencies are going to want different ones, so between ours or theirs, just sell them all for the same price.
Okay. Thank you, Darren. That okay with everyone?
This seems easier to me, and without the commissions, you just never know what you'll get on there. If we're helping neighbors, I think that's much more feasible in my mind.
That's a good approach to take.
Okay, we have a plan.
Thank you.
Anything else, Phil?
Yes, sir.
County Commission reports. Dustin?
No county commission report from me, just excited for the Lady Tigers as they're playing to get into the Elite Eight tonight as we speak.
There you go. Go Tigers. Butch?
I have no report.
Okay. I'm meeting with the mayor tomorrow to visit with about a few issues and county and city working together, so that's all I really have to report. I haven't heard anything else in the county, I guess, other than, as Bill Ring knows, lots of phone calls on roads, but we're doing our best, and God bless the folks in Nebraska. They have bigger issues to deal with than we do, and I believe Bill and his staff are doing the best possible job they can with what they have to work with at the present time. There's just a lot of tore-up roads. So thank you, Bill, and your staff for everything you're doing, and Sheriff's Department for helping out with those situations too, of putting up barricades and slowing people down, and keep up the good work on both sides. At this time, we'll go into executive session, and I believe Butch has the motion.
Yes, I'd make a motion. We go into executive session for the attorney-client privilege exception to discuss potential claim for damages, and should include Administrator Phil and Bill Jeter, and for 10 minutes or so.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Donna, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. No action taken, Donna, and we will adjourn the meeting at 6:33. Thank you all for coming this evening.